Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. Hello everybody and welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Of course, I am Juice Springsteen here doing the Saturday night's main event predictions right here inside the Juice Box this week. Solo, however, but looking to have a 2 or 3 man booth for the Survivor Series predictions later next month, which is rapidly approaching considering Saturday night's main event is on November 1st. Before we even get into it, at Juicy Steen on Twitter, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram, at Juicy Steen on YouTube. If you can listen to this show on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, and juicysteen.podbean.com. Spotify and Apple Podcasts via iTunes. If you leave a rating and review, it does help the show grow. Like I said, 4 matches lined up for this Saturday night's main event, and it's on Peacock. Therefore, we will not have any advertisements throughout the show, at least, no commercials like we would if it were on NBC. The show starts at 7 p.m., so it'll be a little bit of an interesting time for those out in Utah for this to start, either 4 or 5. I'm not sure if they're Utah being on Mountain Time or Western, the Pacific Standard Time. But either way, not the traditional Triple H 5-match set, although, again, with it not really being a PLE and just being a Saturday night's main event, 4 matches seems to be right in the wheelhouse. Potentially, a segment, maybe another match is thrown in later on tonight on SmackDown, but of course, this show airing well before SmackDown airs, so we won't know until tomorrow with all of you. So let's dive right into it. This is going to be a pretty concise predictions episode. Kind of went over this a little bit yesterday on No Dirt, Just Dialogue with Andrew Baydala and Jordan Carter, Slick Flair on Twitter. And, we kind of recapped a little bit of what happened in the week that was and then dove into some Saturday night's main event and came up with a couple of ideas and predictions, but I'm going to dive a little deeper than that here in this episode. But like I said, running solo, this should be a concise 15 to 20 minutes, perfectly digestible right before Saturday night's main event, if you are so inclined. Triple threat match for the IC title, and I also will note this, 4 matches, every single one is a championship match. First one, IC title on the line, triple threat rules, Penta, Rusev, Dominic Mysterio. This is set up for anybody other than Dominic Mysterio to lose, because I think Dominic Mysterio has a date with John Cena, whether that is in the Boston Garden or the Madison Square Garden Raw episode, or potentially at Survivor Series, which takes place in San Diego for a championship John Cena has never won, the Intercontinental. Both of those factors making that match particularly intriguing if it were to happen. So I see Dom retaining the championship. Now, how that happens, I'm not sure. Of course, with it being a triple threat, anything can happen, and there aren't any DQs, nothing to, like Dom can't play the Eddie Guerrero card here and cheat to win necessarily. He can just use his tactics to win and not have a fear of being disqualified. So I see more than likely Penta taking the pin, although Rusev kind of getting in the way or someone interfering and taking Rusev out and leading the pin to go to Rusev could also be in play. Ultimately, I think Dominic Mysterio will win this match and retain the championship, but I do foresee a quality match with the 4 matches, and in this probably going 2 hours and maybe a little longer than that. I don't know if 15 minutes is too long for a match like this. I mean, we've got 2 world title matches as well. So, on the men's side at least, 1 women's world championship. So, I'm not really sure where the time frame is or will land for this triple threat. But, give me 9 to 10, minutes overall. And I would wager that Dom getting that win in that amount of time would be a good enough start for the next round of whatever he's got going on. And of course, with no Cena in the mix on this particular show, there's no way of really knowing what's next for Dom, even if it were to be Cena. Women's World Championship, the WWE Women's Championship on the line. Tiffany Stratton defends against Jade Cargill, a newly heel Jade Cargill, seemingly at the last minute where she's turning heel here. Not sure. It's too early to know if it's going to work based off of early reports. But kind of off the injury, the upper eye injury that happened in the triple threat, I think, with Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton, kind of was the beginnings of where that heel turn could go, and now it's fully fledged. I do see Jade now as she's kind of being that heel character. The Bianca Belair Jade Cargill match/feud could be more imminent than we initially anticipated, and I would wager that potentially Bianca gets involved at this show in this match, whether that is to cost Jade the win, help Jade win, and then go after Jade. I'm not sure. But ultimately, I still think it is Tiffy time, and Jade has other business to tend to, with Tiffany having other new challengers to defend her World or WWE Women's Championship against. So I'm taking Tiffany Stratton, and we're also not really thinking of what is next, which is Survivor Series in San Diego, War Games. You would probably wager to see, a men and women's War Games match. And in that women's War Games match, if Bianca and Jade are on opposite sides, maybe those are your captains. If they're on the same side, maybe you have Tiffany on that other side, and bolstering and building your teams from that base. But I'm not necessarily sure what group of women they're going to choose for War Games. I'm pretty sure Rhea Ripley is a strong candidate to be involved there. Io Sky, Asuka, somewhere in between those women and who we've got going on. Additionally, here on the SmackDown side of it all, but I think Tiffany Stratton will retain the championship. I don't necessarily think it's going to be anything crazy. This is a unique matchup, though, a one-on-one matchup that I'm very much looking forward to. Although I believe they ran this. This is them running it back from Crown Jewel, if I'm not mistaken. And in that match, Stephanie Vaquer. It was Stephanie Vaquer took the women's Crown Jewel Championship, as a matter of fact. So that actually wasn't. But I'm pretty sure these two fought. Was it WrestlePalooza that I'm thinking of? I'm trying to recall when these two last had a match. But either way, looking forward to this. Unique styles. I'm probably thinking more or less of the triple threat match that I had referenced earlier, where Jade had that gruesome eyebrow injury. So a lot of interesting stuff going on in the women's side of it all. But let's move on to one of the two men's World Championship matches. The first is the undisputed WWE Championship. Drew McIntyre once again challenging Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. This seems to be a clear-cut Cody win. Say that 5 times fast. However, shock has been pulled for shock before. But I will say, and it was brought up in our discussion on No Dirt, Just Dialogue this past week, that Drew McIntyre is in the process, or will be in the process, of filming for Highlander. I'm pretty sure it's a new TV series, not necessarily a movie. A movie he'd definitely be out for a while, but for a TV series of Highlander. So if that is the case, I don't foresee Drew being the champion going forward, which is kind of frustrating. I'd like to see Drew get a championship and hold it for a little while, other than the short amount of time he had it at WrestleMania 40. But maybe that time is in the future, when things settle down, when Cena's not a part of it, when Seth Rollins is still out from injury, and who knows who is back in the title picture potentially next year. I don't see a problem with Drew McIntyre still being involved in the world title main event scene. So I see Cody Rhodes retaining this championship. And I wonder what it leads to. I think either guy on the other, the World Heavyweight Championship match could factor in to Cody's championship going forward, whether that's Punk winning the Chamber and going after a Cody Rhodes, whether Jey Uso were to win a match like that and go against a Cody Rhodes. Other than that, if it's neither of those guys, I find it hard to predict who Cody Rhodes will defend that WWE Championship against going forward. Not necessarily at Survivor Series, that could also be War Games, but for Cody at least. But I don't, you got that Saturday night's main event. Could Cena be that match again? Could it be Cody and Cena one final time? I don't know. Either way, I mean, the Rumble's coming up after that, and you're going to have to build to something once we get into Rumble/WrestleMania season. And the Cody Rhodes dynamic is very interesting. I think there's still an outside shot. You get that Cody Randy Orton match that we've been teased with for a while. Orton, of course, would probably in that case be the heel, where I've mentioned it before, he would more than likely have to give Cody the dreaded punt to really solidify the dastardly heel status that Orton once had back in that 2009-2010 era. I think if that's the case, Cody and him would they already have the built-in legacy dynamic from their days in that group back in 2010. So that's where that story is, but you got to get one of these guys to turn heel, and I don't think Cody is that next guy to be heel yet. I think at some point he will turn heel, and I hope when that happens he's not champion, because I think that would make Cody more dangerous to become champion. So maybe that's next. Maybe Orton and Cody is next, but that to me is a WrestleMania match. Maybe Cody gets Cena's final match to conclude a trilogy of their matches in the year 2025. I'm not too sure, but as I always say here on the Juice Box, the more unpredictable, the better. The more avenues to travel down, the better. The more exciting, the more unique. And, me not knowing and me trying to guess is what keeps the world go round in pro wrestling. So keeps the juices flowing, and looking forward to seeing what happens next. There always could be an interference in this. I just don't see Drew McIntyre winning the championship by any sort of imagination or guess. Maybe you get a DQ. I mean, that would be kind of frustrating as well. I'd like to see a clean finish here, but then again, it's what's next for Drew, or does Cody win? Drew gets pissed off and takes Cody out and gets suspended. I mean, there's again a lot of different ways they can go about this. I'm not sure necessarily where Triple H and the group of creative will land, but like I said, it's intriguing, so looking forward to seeing what happens, because anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation. World Heavyweight Championship, we will crown a new champion, vacant as of a couple of weeks ago. Seth Rollins had to vacate the championship, of course, due to a legitimate injury, an actual injury. It was his shoulder, rumors swirling that it happened during the Crown Jewel match with Cody. And it was that coast-to-coast Benoit-esque headbutt that looked very, very dangerous, and it definitely hurt Seth. And even though they already ran the Seth Rollins' quote-unquote wink and a nod injured, and then threw the crutches down at SummerSlam to cash in Money in the Bank, I don't see this being that case again. Case being a pun there for the Money in the Bank, but... you put yourself into a corner by working the fans and everybody by having that worked injury angle, and that was a great payoff, I will admit. But now he's really injured, and now you really have to have backup plans and figure something else out and pivot. And Seth was on, I believe, Good Morning Football. He was on one of the NFL Network football programs earlier today, as of this recording, Halloween. Happy Halloween, by the way. Halloween Havoc, probably one of my favorite WCW pay-per-views to go and rewatch, but I digress. Seth, being on one of those football shows, said that he is going to be out 6 months. So in wrestler terms, he'll be back in 4. That puts him right around WrestleMania. So whether he returns before WrestleMania, whether he hops into the Elimination Chamber, or he shows up at WrestleMania, I think any of those options are on the table. Whether that means he'll return as a babyface or heel is up in the air. And I also find that intriguing because Seth is, him being around and being a heel is kind of long in the tooth. I'm kind of over it. And I don't think he really works that well as a babyface. I think Seth Rollins is best served as a dual threat bad guy, where he could have good tendencies or be the bad guy to other bad guys, but, has a mutual respect for a Cody Rhodes, So he's kind of in the middle of the road, a tweener, if you will. And I just think that that's where he's best positioned on the card. But until he does come back and clearly, to all calculations and thoughts, predictions and otherwise, seemingly back into the title picture when he does return, we get to find a new champ. And Jey Uso, CM Punk, two guys who have been champion already this year. Jey Uso for, what was that? A little over a couple of months, and CM Punk, 5 minutes? So both these guys trying to become world champion second time in the calendar year of 2025. And, you have LA Knight waiting in the wings. You have Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed chomping at the bit, waiting to get their hands on whoever wins this match and becomes the new World Heavyweight Champion. You've got the Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns portion of this story where, Jey, if he becomes champion, Jimmy helped him kind of not get eliminated in the Battle Royal, but Jey then subsequently eliminated Jimmy from the Battle Royal. CM Punk has been number one contender for a bit and was all slated to, probably face Seth Rollins at this show, but it didn't happen because of the Seth injury. So now with the pivot, I don't know what WWE is going to do. That being said, I have a feeling Jey Uso is going to walk out of the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, Utah as your new World Heavyweight Champion. I do think that Jimmy Uso could play a role, whether that's direct or indirect or a distraction or what have you. And if and when Jey Uso does win the championship, I foresee a big in the head, I'm better than the last champion, I'm my own, or the new tribal chief, where that could piss Roman off significantly and lead to some friction between the bloodline. Yes, that's still happening. And, maybe you get Roman and Jey at WrestleMania, whether that's Roman winning the Rumble or the Chamber or what have you. But Jey Uso as world champion leads a lot. And I don't think it's going to be Jimmy and Jey running that match back from WrestleMania 40, an event that I've referenced twice now on this show. I don't foresee them running that match back because of the abysmal reviews that it got. I also feel that even in their 2-minute interaction during the main event of WrestleMania 40, that was more entertaining than the actual 10-minute match we got between the two brothers one-on-one. So, like I said, it could go a lot of ways, but I ultimately think Jey Uso is going to walk out as your new World Heavyweight Champion, leading to maybe an LA Knight involvement at some point for a one-on-one match. You have Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker in the wings. They could go after either CM Punk or Jey Uso, whoever is champion. And I also think that regardless of who's champion in this match, both these men, Jimmy Uso, Roman Reigns, and maybe LA Knight, that could be your 5 potentially in a War Games match to go on against, a Braun Breaker, a Bronson Reed, maybe a Brock Lesnar, among 2 other men. So a lot to digest there with that. Maybe CM Punk does win, and it's an obvious where, here comes Brock Lesnar, here comes Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed. Where do they fit in? Could we get Lesnar versus Punk before the year is over? I mean, that was one hell of a match back at SummerSlam 2013, but that was 12 years ago. Not sure where those guys stand necessarily in a match now, where Cena got decimated by Lesnar. So what makes you think that Punk wouldn't get decimated by Lesnar? So to me, I think, if that's the case, you want to have CM Punk eventually win that World Heavyweight Championship back. He had it, but was for a quick moment with the Seth Rollins thing. That got derailed, and unless you want to have Punk win this championship and defend it successfully until Rollins gets back, potentially at WrestleMania, which is a lot of ifs and a lot of potentialities, then I think Jey Uso is your guy. I think CM Punk would also love to be the guy that gets so close to winning, doesn't quite get there. He already got there, and then it's taken away. And then eventually that ultimate win over a Rollins or someone of that stature really defines his run, this next and probably last run for CM Punk in WWE. But I don't think that's going to happen yet. I see Jey Uso winning the World Heavyweight Championship and beginning an interesting, not necessarily a heel run or a heel turn, but he's got to do anything it takes to win. I think he's going to get a big head about him and a little bit of an ego, and he's going to think a lot more of himself and maybe himself as the only new OTC, whatever that could be or whatever slogan they could come. Yeet TC, I don't know what the hell they're going to do. But I find it fascinating if Jey Uso were to win this world championship with Jimmy helping him and Roman being kind of wary of the whole thing. That is an interesting dynamic that the Bloodline could use to juice up their story and could help as the Bloodline seemingly going ahead as the main event portion of one of the stories for the main championships as we turn the page into 2026, leading towards WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. So 4 matches, 4 championship matches. I think Dom Mysterio retains. I think Tiffany Stratton retains. I think Cody Rhodes retains. And I think Jey Uso will walk out as your new World Heavyweight Champion. I would not be shocked if Brock Lesnar appears on this show. I will leave it at that. But as for me, hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick, concise prediction show of Saturday night's main event taking place tomorrow night in Utah. Hopefully we have a couple of guests on, at least one, for the following WWE prediction show. That will be Survivor Series at the end of November. Of course, we've got Survivor Series. We've got Full Gear the week before that. We've got Saturday night's main event, Cena's final match, December 13th. A lot of good stuff coming down the pike here to close out 2025 with just 2 months left in the year. Pretty crazy, but thanks again for listening. And as always, follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram, at JuicySteen on YouTube. And you should subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Listen to it on Amazon Music or on Podbean at juicysteen.podbean.com. And if you do listen to it via Spotify or Apple Podcasts via iTunes, leave a rating and review. It does help the show, and I thank you for the support. So enjoy the weekend. We got a lot of football. We got a lot of pro wrestling here. We've got the World Series either ending tonight, if you listen to this on Friday, or tomorrow. Either way. So a lot of cool stuff. Sports world, sports entertainment. We are cooking here in the colder months. I'm Juice Springsteen, and I hope you guys enjoy this Saturday night's main event prediction show right here on The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.